to my studio. If you haven't been here before, my name is Jane and I am a textile artist working in the middle of Scotland, and I run an online creativity club called the Studio Club. Now, last week I was showing you around the garden and explaining how I am now incorporating that into my business, and I'm going to be growing lots of plants that can be dried and pressed and that I can then sell to other people who want to co-create maybe with nature, doing eco-printing, cyanotyping, natural dyeing, monoprinting, all these kinds of things. So to the business-minded of you, it might seem strange that this week I turn up and I'm going to show you how to press flowers for the best results yourself. Surely, doesn't add up if I'm just giving away all my secrets. However, one, I believe that it is really, really important to connect people to their creativity and to nature. And the more people doing it, the better. The more skills you have, the better. The more people know how to do these things, the better. And that is why I love YouTube. Secondly, I am never going to be able to produce that much material for all you people out there. It's just ridiculous. Thirdly, lots of you aren't in the UK, and I would not be able to send anything outside the UK because of customs regulations. So there we go. I'm going to show you how to press flowers so that you can use them in creating. Now, this is something that it's a little bit like fashion. Excuse me. It is possible to go on to Amazon or Temu or one of these sites and get 500 pressed flowers for £5. And they come from China and they are flat packed in plastic, like cellophane kind of things, and the little flower heads. And that is the fast fashion end of pressed flowers. Don't know how they're grown, don't know how they're produced. The price is way, way, way too low. They're there, least said maybe. And then there is the couture end. So there are people who make pressed flower bouquets or pressed flower art, where maybe they have the roots going down, or they have quite elaborate plants like peonies, roses that are pressed, and they are very, very, and rightly so, very expensive. If you're wanting to learn how to do something like that, then I would recommend the Modern Pressed Flower, who does online courses and things, but is actually in the UK at the moment, touring with her Dolly Parton show. So what I'll do is I'll put the links, because I know that she's going to have a couple of in-person events in the UK. So I'll link to all of that underneath here. If what you're looking to do is to press flowers in a more art kind of way, where you're going to keep the flowers as the art. What I'm talking about, somewhere in between, where I want to press the flowers, but I want to use them in creating art. So I'm not really thinking particularly about the appearance of the flower per se. For example, if I'm going to be cyanotyping, it doesn't matter to me if the actual flower has gone brown, as long as it still keeps its shape and keeps its transparency in paper. But if I was wanting to put that same flower into a frame on the wall, it would matter to me a lot whether it had gone brown. So these are the three different things. There is the fast fashion, £500 for a fiver. There is the couture level, and then what I'm talking about is creating something that you can then use in your art. I mean, it'd be fine. The things that I'm talking about are fine for making cards or kind of thing. If you're wanting to do couture stuff, go and learn from somebody else. So, how do you press flowers up? First thing, in Scotland particularly, is it is essential that your flowers are dry. So when I used to grow cut flowers, I would say pick first thing in the morning. You don't want to do that if you're going to be cutting the flowers to press them. You want to cut them when they have dried off in the sun. Now, anybody who knows Scotland, there was a sun word in that sentence and a dried off word. Often it is not possible to get flowers which are completely dry if they're still outside. So a lot of the time, what I'm doing is I'm cutting the flowers and then I'm putting them into a vase of water. That keeps them alive because obviously you don't want them to drip, but it allows them to dry off. So this is a bunch that I picked yesterday when it was a little bit drizzly, I must say. I've put them in a vase and they have all dried off really nicely. That's just, keep them fairly loose. Just put them into some water. You're not going to have them in there for weeks. So it doesn't really matter about stripping leaves or anything like that, or arranging it to look beautiful. You're just giving them a drink overnight and letting all the petals dry off. So what is the easiest way to press flowers? Absolute easiest way is to get a heavy book. So this is the heaviest book that I could find on the studio shelves. Very beautiful book about the gardens of Arna Maynard. And all I'm going to do is open it up. Here we are. Kingsmead Milk. Take a piece of parchment paper, which is what I use to press my flowers in. Fold that over. Nice crisp seam, and then pop it in between the pages. I'm going to open it out like that and pick a flower from here. Okay. Just using a strand here. And then I can just pop that in there, close over the parchment, and then slam the book shut. Now what I might want to do is to put heavy weight on top of that. Maybe some more books, or you could put it back into the bookshelf and keep it flat. Second easiest way is if you have a rug, roll up the rug, put sheets of newspaper underneath it or wrapping paper or something, put your plants in it, put another sheet of paper at the top, roll the rug down, and that will keep everything flat. The third way, and this is what I did for years, is just to use some boards. So put down your board, pile up your paper, which I'm going to show you, put your other board on the top, and then wrap it really tightly, probably with elastic. That's going to give you the best grip, or velcroed straps, or repurposed rucksack kind of straps, buttons, something that is going to keep that tension in it, and put a weight on the top. Absolutely fine. But because I am planning to expand the business in this way, I am upping my game from the boards. And Ewan, my husband, has made me some very beautiful flower presses this weekend. So I thought that I would show you them. And I'll show you how I'm going to put one together. So this is my new flower press. I'm very, very excited about these. And it is made from 2 pieces of offcuts of old chemistry benches. Have old chemistry benches all over the place here that have been reclaimed. We have them in the greenhouse, have some down in the studio here, and have some in an outdoor kitchen that Ewan is building. And we had some offcuts. So when I asked for some new flower presses, this is what he made me. So it is 2 pieces of chemistry bench, and they each have 6 holes drilled in them, and they are the right size to fit a piece of A4 paper in the middle, nice and easily. So I'll be able to just pile up my paper here, put this down, and then screw it down with little nuts. So I have put, in true Blue Peter style, I have a pile of things that I've taken out of a press already. And I will show you how I would make up a new press. So first thing is, what kind of paper do you use in a press? And there are there's paper that does different things in this press. There's paper that is being a padding. There is paper that is absorbing moisture. And then there's paper that is in contact with your plants. So what you need when you're building a flower press is a lot of very, very rubbishy paper. So this is all the counts. When I was looking for paper for this, I suddenly remembered that I had several boxes of accounts that I no longer need to keep for legal reasons. And it just shows you how things have changed, because now everything is done digitally. I just upload all of the invoices digitally, and they go into the accountancy software, and it produces reports and things for the taxman. In 2014, which is when these are from, we had to keep a paper copy of absolutely everything. So this is what I am using to pad my thing. So you can see it's got invoices here. And it's been quite interesting going through it, because it reinforces to me how stressful running the business was in 2014, when there was like a Royal Mail postal service invoice, and there was 800 orders went out one day, 560 the next. I was paying £4,500 a week in postage costs. And then you see all the invoices that are kind of like panicked invoices, where something's broken and we've had to get somebody in to do it, or something hasn't turned up and we had to get an emergency lot of boxes or packing paper or whatever it is. And it's just, I was thinking, oh, I'm so glad I don't do that anymore. So anyway, all the nasty, stressful invoices, make a little pad at the bottom. And then I'm going to fold over a piece of this parchment paper. Now, years ago I used to just use blotting paper, and blotting paper is fine, absolutely fine. But I then discovered that this parchment paper, which is kind of it's sort of non-stick, heavy-duty, compostable, maybe use it for baking, extra strong. You get it by 200 sheets in a cardboard thing like that. And I fold that over, and this is going to be where I put the flowers in to press. So I have my lovely bunch of flowers here. So again, I'll pick an astrantia, and I'll show you how I would prepare the astrantia. So I'm going to take that bit off down there, and then I'm going to think about the shape of it. Now let's say that I'm going to make this into something that I can cyanotype with. So what I'm going to want is just the shape and the transparency of these petals and the stamens and the stems all being slightly different. And that's what will make the cyanotype beautiful. So I do not want it to be too clumpy. So I'm going to cut off one of these bits at the back. We will keep them and press them. And you can see that that makes it much easier to press and keep these bits far apart. So I'm going to pop it in here, like that. Now I'm going to take another astrantia because I want to fill up all of my space. Again, cut it. You can have the stem sticking out the bottom here, it doesn't matter. Now this one, you can see it's a very different shape. But again, I probably don't want that one at the back. So, chop that. And I'm going to put this one up the other way so that it's evenly balanced. All right. Then gently squash it and put a great wad of paper on the top. And this paper will pad it so that instead of being bumpy like that, it goes flat. But it also absorbs the water. I didn't understand, and I still don't, how having the parchment actually absorbs the water, or that you don't end up with it just all gooey on the parchment, but it does. So, and then once I've done maybe 3 or 4 layers of the astrantia, I would have all of these little bits, and they get, let me put the other one, I've lost one. They get their own sheet, and the reason for that is that the astrantia, the big stems, are quite thick, and the wee ones are thin, and you're wanting to have the same thickness of plant material right the way on your sheet, so that you've not got it held up accidentally and you end up with things that don't press. So again, I would have that all covered with little astrantia, and I think that one's maybe got too many staples in it to use. And we'll just build it up. Now, not all plants are useful for all kinds of art. And at the moment, what I'm dividing it into is things that are going to be good for cyanotyping. And that would tend to be flowers where there is going to be a good kind of differential in transparency. So things that have big petals, things that have good stems. So something like a sweet pea would be absolutely perfect, because when I flatten it, you'll see some of the petals are just going to be 1 layer of petal, and some of them are going to be 2, and some of them are going to be 4, and then this bud will also be good, and then the thick stem will be like solid, completely solid. So it means that when I'm using the cyanotype process, we get a good variation in tones. For monoprinting, what you're looking for is something that's quite tough in texture. So the astrantias are brilliant, something like sanguisoba, which is here. These very wiry stems and solid tops, they are good enough to put up with being rulered with ink without starting to shred. Whereas the sweet peas, yes, you could use them, but you're going to not be able to use them as many times, and you're also going to run the risk of accidentally ripping the flower. And then the third special category that I'm looking at is eco-printing. Now, I suspect this is probably quite a wide thing, and certainly I've used sweet peas in the past, but there are traditional plants that we know work incredibly well for eco-printing. So they are things like cosmos, this beautiful bright cosmos, Dyer's chamomile tinctoria, which these little daisies and the frondy stems both print exceptionally well. And somewhere, yes, I've put in a coreopsis. Again, that is a fantastic eco dyeing plant. So again, we'll start to put in these ones, a bit of the parchment sheet. Right. Usually I would just fold a whole load of these to start with. When you have daisy flowers like this, what you do is you put the flower down the way rather than up the way for the best results. So pop it down there, and you can massage that bit at the back of the stem. So I'm doing, just squashing it, just gently. You don't want to like pulverize the plant, but so that it looks down the way. Pop it on there. I'm going to do exactly the same with this cosmos. Take the back bit there, you see this little star-shaped thing, and very gently just squish it so that it starts to be horizontal. Now pop that in here as well. I'm kind of working backwards so that you can see it. All right, squash them down. Put a whole load of counts on that and get another piece of paper. So the other thing, that when you're pressing your own flowers, you can, or plants in this case, you can really think about shape. So this is a bit of a hop. So a side shape from a hop. You can see it's got a lovely curve on it. So what I'm wanting is to keep that. So when I'm putting it into the press, I'm just going to pop it in there, and then I'm going to just spend a wee bit of time to try and keep as much as possible that lovely shape. All right, you can see it curving around. Often in herbariums, this is what you get. People have actually made very beautiful shapes with the plants, even though it is a scientific thing. And what I'm doing here is I'm just cutting this leaf off because it wouldn't go flat, but also it was kind of cluttering it up. But I will put it with these because this is quite flat. I'm going to do the same with this one. And then when printing, they can be reassembled in a nice way. So there we have, whether you can see it, all of the hop. It's beautifully arranged on here. Then I'm just going to shut that down and put more accounts on the top. This is what I would do. I would just build it all up and up and up and up. And let's just pretend, okay, that I've built it all the way up here with lots and lots of layers. Put that to the side. Then I've got my bit of wood here. Now, somewhere on here I have a mark, I'm sure, yes. There's a mark, and there's a mark on the bottom one, just so that I know which way round it goes. I can put all of my bolts in the holes. So these are M10 nuts here, and they are, goodness, maybe I filled it a little bit too high. Take some of this out. They are 20 centimetres long, which seems to be the longest that you can get in hardware shops. And then I will put the wing nuts on, like this. You put them corner to corner first, and then the middle one. So that corner, and then this corner. So you get the good diagonal, rather than if you put them all at one end, it's much more difficult to put these ones in at the end. And just tighten them up, sort of like very loose hand tightening, and then when they're all on, screw them right the way down. So I would put them, all of the nuts on there like that, and I would kind of like hand tighten them as far as they will go. And then in another couple of hours, I would come back and you find that they'll go around 3 or 4 more times than they would. It's just that the plant material is beginning to shrink. And then this is where you're going to see why pressed flowers should be expensive. I'm going to leave that for 1 at the most 2 days, right, somewhere. Then I'm going to take it all to bits. I'm going to change the paper and reassemble it. So I'll put this one to the side and I'll get one that I did yesterday. Right, so this is a press that I did yesterday, and already you can see that actually I could tighten it up more, but instead I'm going to take it all to bits. The good thing about having gone up to these more sturdy presses is that the actual weight of the wood is contributing to the efficiency of the press, shall we say. When I just used boards before, I used to put something heavy like a stone on the top middle to give the same kind of effect. Right, there we go. Then I'll put this over there. Right, so this is more accounts, and what I can feel is that these have gone kind of cold and slightly clammy. So I'm going to change them for some nice fresh paper. Now, I'm not going to throw these out, obviously. I'm just going to let them dry off. So I'll be putting them just in piles along here under a sunny windowsill. But it means that you've got a very gentle kind of drying process. So this is some geraniums, some cranesbills from the garden. They could be used either for eco-printing or for cyanotypes. Their petals are just beautiful in cyanotypes because they let in so much of the light, but not all of it. And you can see, even 1 day pressing, it's becoming quite sturdy and flat. I'm wanting something that's going to be quite strong so that it will stand up to eco-printing, but also if I'm wanting to use it for cyanotype, I can use it several times. So there we go. And I could use that now. It's not preserved yet, it's just very flat. But I'm going to keep them and dry them. There's another wee petal. And you can see with the parchment that it just allows me to peel them gently off there. Right, so I'm going to put that to one side. Take out more of the clammy paper, and here are more geraniums. You can see, just beautiful flowers. Now, here you can see I've probably crowded the page a little bit much. So I'm going to peel that one off and pop it there. Peel this one. Make sure that they're not actually touching. But you can see, I think, that how strong and sturdy this baking parchment makes them. Whereas when I used to use blotting paper, it kind of took some of the moisture from the plants and they often stuck. They often stuck. Here are some geraniums, but with them is a cosmos. Right, you can see this. I have pressed the cosmos. This is Cosmos rubenza, which is just glorious, glorious dark red. And I'm not actually going to try and peel that yet because it is very, very soft. So I'm going to leave that a few more days, but I will turn these. Yeah, here is a cosmos that was dried last year. You can see it's lost its colour, which is what pressed flowers tend to do. But look how sturdy it is. The stem, the boss here, and in the petals, you know, I can do this with them. They're not breaking, they're not ruffling, and that would be absolutely fantastic for eco printing. Beautiful, bright flowers. Very, very popular. If you want to see how they're used brilliantly, go and check out Liz Spencer at the Dogwood Dyer. She uses a lot of these. Right, so here is some more cosmos. You can see. And you can see how the colour fades over the year. But in terms of printing, the colour doesn't fade when you print them onto properly mordanted fabric. So they are going to be beautiful. Right. And of course you don't just need to do the flower heads, you can into with the stems, and I think that's what I'm going to do more and more of now that my flowers are actually getting some stems on them. They're not all just like this tall. They're cold. So I'm going to take this press to bits. I'm not going to show you it all because that's actually quite boring. And I'm going to replace all of the paper as I go, and I'm just going to tighten it up. So it's going to have new paper, and then I'm going to leave it for a week. So I thought I would finish this by just showing you a selection of things, the kind of things that you could make if you put together a collection of dried plants from your garden or wildflowers or from bouquets that you've been given through the year. And whether you're working with inks and rollers and making monoprints, or whether you are doing cyanotypes with sunlight, or whether you're eco printing, there are so many possibilities. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you next week. Bye bye.